This one is by Sydney Watson. Wait, I said it was. Yeah. I don't know why I questioned myself on that. The spectacular collapse of the trans movement. Let's see how this video goes, shall we?
How many genders are there?
It's a spectrum, so like a lot.
Can you name me a few?
There are only two. There are only ever been two. There will only ever be two. I don't know why people have a hard time accepting that.
You don't think that there really is any clear-cut distinction between male and female as biological categories, is that correct?
So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term.
Well, 3 years ago, a Florida family story went viral for raising a gender-neutral baby.
I identify as non-binary.
I was found.
Okay, here in reality, biologically, non-binary does not exist. It cannot exist because if non-binary was an actual thing, they would not be able to reproduce because they would have neither male nor female genitalia or way to reproduce because they just can't. They would go extinct right away.
Fast-tracked onto puberty blockers and then testosterone.
Gender clinics across the country have seen a huge rise in child referrals.
I have been misgendered 3 times in the past 24 hours.
Boo fucking who? Oh my god. Look, if you tell them, if you respectfully tell them to, that you identify as this gender, and you respectfully tell them, and then they continue to, be a dick and just call you the gender that you don't identify as, then fine. You know what? That is disrespectful. You ask them to, change how they refer to you. But if you never say anything and then you complain about it later, then you know what? Boo fucking who, cry me a goddamn river. The transgender movement. I got nothing against trans people. It is the people who try and shove it down your fucking throat or shove it in your face. Those are the people I have a problem with.
Christian teacher who was banned from teaching for misgendering a pupil has lost his high court battle.
He got the axe for failing to use a transgender student's preferred pronouns.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
I'm a member of the...
Oh. You know why we say ladies and gentlemen when addressing a crowd? Because there are ladies and gentlemen.
The transgender community. More accurately, more specifically, on what you call gender non-binary or gender non-conforming.
I'm so glad that everyone has had enough of this.
Like, really, the entire transgender movement has gone way out of fucking hand. They have lost it. They've gone completely off-road.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Incogni. I hope you all liked the very dramatic introduction that I tried to execute for this video. I'm trying to do something different, okay? I expect all of you to tell me in the comments that I am the Lord of Editing. And if you don't, then I shall scream. Anyway, as many of you know who've been around this channel for a number of years, I have continually brought you stories concerning the transgender movement and its weird cousin, the gender ideology movement. Although at this point, they're more like conjoined twins, just fused together to bring the rest of us suffering. But I have always believed that had these ideologies simply stayed on Reddit and on Tumblr and in the recesses of academia, things might have turned out differently. But no. But for the last decade or so, the conjoined twins have been beating down the door of every single institution, both politically, medically, socially, and basically calling for outright submission from absolutely everyone. Through force, mostly, and against all logic and reason, this ideology, these ideologies, have become mainstream. I really, really wish it had all stayed on Tumblr. As things have accelerated, I have told you stories.
Germany, 2 trans-identified male inmates housed in women's prisons were transferred out after threatening female inmates. Inquiry reveals. Oh my god. Look, if you were born biologically as a man, you should be sent to prison with the rest of the men. If you don't understand why, then you don't understand the dangers of it. Educate yourself, people.
Stories about violent male criminals housed with female inmates. I've walked you through the many, many ways this ideology has attacked.
In fact, a 2018 study found that many vulva owners don't or can't orgasm from penetrative sex alone. Vulva owners. I don't know why the transgender movement has such a visceral hatred for the word woman or female. Why has the majority of the population capitulated to these dumbasses? I don't get it. Why? Just why? Vulva owners. Do you mean women? As a result, many heterosexual... I'm just going to say women instead of vulva owners because this is just fucking stupid. As a result, many heterosexual women may not enjoy this kind of sex as much because they're less likely to experience orgasm. Researchers found that women, regardless of sexual orientation, were more likely to orgasm if any of the following occurred alongside PIV sex. I don't know what PIV is. Deep kissing, manual genital stimulation, oral sex... This is so goddamn dumb.
Attacked and erased women and motherhood. I've told you about men beating the snot.
Khalif is a man. I don't know who the fuck Khalif is. Female. Oh, is that the female boxer? Is that man? Is that trans boxer that I saw a long time ago? Female boxer who fought Imain Khalif speaks out, claims Algerian boxing team told her Khalif has been biologically altered by living in the mountains. Are you serious? Are you fucking serious? I think I lost some IQ points off of that.
Out of women in women's sports, and how this movement...
NHS Trust's Guide. Replace breastfeeding with breast/chest feeding. It's breastfeeding. It'll always be breastfeeding. Replace breast milk with... You cannot say human milk. You can't. You cannot say human milk. Because that also includes men. And you don't want man milk. You don't want man milk. It'll always be breast milk. Always. Replace maternity with parental? Maternity. It's maternity.
Has destroyed our entire comprehension of the English language so that we might accommodate the Zirzims and their chest feeding and chemically induced nipple discharge. Yeah, I bet that's an image you're glad I put in your head. Pour that on your cereal. I am sorry, that's a lot. So with that in mind, what will come as a surprise to none of you is that this ideology, these movements, have finally pushed things way too far. And now they get to see the fruits of their labor come to fruition in ways that they didn't quite expect. As most of you likely know, since day one of his presidency, Donald Trump has signed several executive orders that walk back some of the insanity integrated into US society over the last decade or so. The first was an executive order stating that the US government will only recognize two sexes. As an aside too, I find it...
Because throughout human history, throughout human evolution, biologically there are only two sexes. Unless somehow in the next million years there evolves another human with a with a fourth sex, because if there's a third one, if you want to count intersex as a third sex, then that can be. But there are only two. Because that is how we biologically evolved, to have two, male and female. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that's just how evolution went. You want to be mad at somebody, be mad at evolution, and be mad at God.
Endlessly embarrassing that we needed someone to sign an executive order stating that there are only two sexes, given that this is something that we have understood forever. It is odd that the last 10 years or so has completely eliminated all logic and reason. I struggle with this. The second executive order will essentially remove
Trump signs executive order barring transgender people from military service. The order reinstates a policy from Trump's first term that prohibited trans people from enlisting and barred those already in the military from transitioning. I can't really say anything about this one because I don't know much about when it comes to the military, but mentally it's probably because of all the mental stuff that goes into it with transition, trans people, transgender, whatever you want to say. It's probably the mental aspect that makes it probably not so good for trans people to be in the military. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to ask my dad because he was in the military for 30 years.
Gender and gender ideology weirdos from military service, rightly pointing out that the military's existing policy excludes people who have medical conditions and physical defects. The third executive order will end
protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. Yes, keep this shit away from kids. Anybody who thinks that it is okay for kids to transition, any parent that thinks it is okay for their kids to transition, fails as a parent and should no longer be a parent. Anybody else who thinks that it's okay for kids to go through this, you need to stay the fuck away from kids.
Gender-based mutilation of minors. And in his most recent move, Trump signed a fourth executive order banning...
Trump signs executive order banning trans women from women's sports. It is the fourth order directly targeting transgender people the president has signed since he took office January 20th. Yes, trans women should not be joining women's sports because trans women are still biologically men, and biological men have a biological advantage over biological women. We are bigger, we are stronger, we are faster. All around, we have a insurmountable biological advantage over women when it comes to sports. And it is disrespectful to women who have worked their entire lives to be the best at what they're doing in the sport that they have decided to do it in, for a trans woman to come in and just beat them easily. You have basically just neutralized all their hard work. Trans women should not be joining women's sports. It is disrespectful and it is just mean. If you don't like that, then don't be mad at me. Be mad at biology. That is just how it is.
Men from women's sports.
This common sense action from President Trump ends the disgusting betrayal of women and girls by the previous administration, who for years...
And if you think it's okay for trans women to go into women's sports, you obviously do not care about women then. You don't. You'd say, fuck the women. Let's care more about the trans women.
Catered to radical activists who wanted biological males to be treated as women in workplace showers, competitive sports, prisons, and even rape shelters.
Once again, unsurprising to none of you, this has caused a lot of screaming from the usual suspects. But with all of this said, and with everything that I'm about to lay out in the rest of this video, I want to make one key crucial point that basically summarizes why we're talking about this. These executive orders have obviously resulted in a ton of screaming, but the people doing the screaming haven't stopped for a single second to realize that they did this to themselves. So I'm gonna walk you through what led us to this point, and it's terrible and I'm sorry in advance. But you want to know what I'm not sorry about? You protecting your private information, which is why today's video is sponsored by Gryphonknight. Ever Googled yourself? If you haven't, you probably should, because then you too can be traumatized by how much information about you is out there and public. Information like your
I don't think I'd ever
addresses,
want to
your
Google
birthday,
myself.
your email, even your social security number. I know, I also find this really creepy. Data brokers and data websites are actually a huge issue, and they're the reason that you get spam calls and texts and emails. Because they sell your data to whoever is asking. And if you're like me and you find all of this deeply uncomfortable, well, I know a company that can help. Gryphonknight. Gryphonknight reaches out to data brokers on your behalf and requests the removal of your personal information. It also handles any objections from these data websites. Gryphonknight also ensures your data stays off the internet by conducting repeated removals, taking your data down if it pops up again. Which it can and will, because data brokers can re-add you. Privacy is actually hugely important to me, so I really mean it when I say that I genuinely love Gryphonknight. Not only does it work, but it's insanely easy to use. You make an account, fill out the information you want removed, and grant Gryphonknight the right to work for you. Then sit back and let them do all the work. Gryphonknight also lets you protect your friends and family, which is why you can add up to 4 loved ones to your annual subscription. And if you're at all concerned, Gryphonknight offers a risk-free 30 days. So if you don't love it, you can get a full refund on your service. So if you too want to take your data back from creepy data brokers, then click the link in the description or go to gryphonknight.com/Sydney. And don't forget to use code Sydney for 60% off an annual plan. I would argue that most of us, me included, started off pretty indifferent to all of this. I can only speak for myself, but I've always been pretty live and let live. You want to call yourself a man and live as one? Okay, no skin off my nose. You want to call yourself a zim in your weird online community away from me? Okay, you do you. You want me to treat most people with decency even if I don't agree with some of the things that they're doing, obviously, unless those things are illegal, that's a different story, then sure. That's fine, I can do that. But you see, the problem is, these activists and the people in these movements have pushed people like me, and probably a lot of you, way too far. Somewhere along this psycho road, this stopped being about decency and the tenets of live and let live, and became about forcing compliance, compelling speech, forcing women especially into situations that are unsafe or make us feel deeply and inherently uncomfortable. And so the acceleration of this forced compliance and these crazy situations have forced people like me, the people who've long been in the middle, just floating around being pretty indifferent, right over the edge of the cliff. So now, no, I won't use your preferred pronouns. I don't want men in women's bathrooms and locker rooms, no matter how much of a wallflower that man is. I no longer believe that the zims are harmless internet dorks. I see them as people perpetuating genuine mental illness with the support of politicians and academia and the medical community and basically every other institution under the sun. So if you're here watching this, part of this group of people, people, wondering why it seems that everyone turned on you so quickly, or if you're like me and you're like, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. This was always going to get like this, but Sydney, please tell me more. I'm gonna walk you all through how we ended up at this exact spot in time. And of course, it all started very subtly and insidiously, as these things so often do. In the early 2010s, progressive companies, HR departments, and universities around North America started adopting preferred pronoun policies. The University of Michigan, for example, introduced a system in 2013 allowing students to designate pronouns, he, she, ze, zer, on class rosters, with the expectation that professors comply with this self-identification.
Look, here's the thing when it comes to this stuff. If you want somebody to comply with some of the things, you need to respectfully ask them if they can. You can't just force somebody to capitulate to the language that you want them to, go to. You can't force somebody to do this stuff. And if you get mad if they don't when you're trying to force them, then you have nobody to be mad at but yourself. Now, if you respectfully ask them once or twice and they still don't do it, then yeah, then you can start getting mad. But if you are, right away trying to force them to change their language, then you know what? You can fuck off. And that's just how it is.
Employees were also encouraged to add
Why put pronouns in email signatures? So firstly, let's start with why do we use pronouns in our signatures here at Inclusive Employers? Oh, this already sounds dumb. Well, to not only show support and solidarity for our transgender non-binary friends in our acceptance of all genders, but to hopefully ease the burden on our trans and non-binary colleagues and acquaintances from having the same conversations again and again. Being an ally every day is important. I will be an ally as long as they are respectful and kind. As soon as they are not, I'm not going to be nice. Because the golden rule applies to everybody. Treat others how you want to be treated. If you start treating... Here's how I work. If you show me disrespect or be mean to me once, I can let that go because you might be having a very bad day. Your emotions are running high. All that stuff. But if after that you do it again and again and again, I am not going to be nice anymore. I'm not. I've gone through my entire life being kind to everybody, even after they are continuously unkind and disrespectful to me. I am in my 30s. I am too old to be dealing with this dumbass childish bullshit. So like I said, if you do it to me once, I can let that go. If you do it to me twice and more after that, I am no longer going to be nice, and I'm going to start treating you how you're treating me. And if you don't like it, well, you know what? Maybe you should start treating people better. As a society, we are making others live easier by declaring our pronouns. Okay. Letting people know how we identify to eliminate any confusion, and therefore minimizing the chance of anyone being misgendered or outed with no risk or burden whatsoever to the cisgender community. This cis thing was started for transgenders. I don't know. Just eliminate the cis. Just get rid of it. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants it. An act as simple as adding pronouns to email signatures can lead us on the way to normalizing pronouns, and by doing this, we can hopefully make the world a more accepting and inclusive place for all. Look, if you want to add your pronouns and stuff, that's fine. Don't just try and shove it in people's faces. You're going to piss people off that way, and you're going to make enemies faster than you will friends.
Pronouns to their email signatures at particular companies. The concept of non-binary was already swirling around.
The other thing I think is hilarious is that the people say I'm they them. So what? You have a multiple personality disorder? because he realized that they and them refer to more than one person.
On Tumblr and Twitter, but now these fringe identities and psycho-neo pronouns were showing up in the real world. Non-compliance at this point wasn't heavily penalized, everything was painted as voluntary, but cultural pressure started to accelerate.
I'm non-binary, and this is why I use this abbreviation and not this.
What makes these people so annoying is that they make their gender identity their entire fucking personality. That's why these people are so fucking annoying. You want to say what your pronoun is and what you identify as? Fine. That's fine. Don't make it your entire being. Because at that point, you are annoying and nobody wants to be around you. Because you are, at that point, just constantly shoving it in people's faces. Don't make it the entirety of who you are.
Fine.
Today I'm going to show you how to use a-er pronouns in sentences, so let's go. A-er pronouns are a form of neopronouns, and oh my goodness, isn't that just so beautiful?
So one of the unexpected parts about being a
God, this guy's annoying.
tall trans femme is the amount of times I'll be walking behind a woman on the streets and I'll like, skirt around because I got long legs and places to be. And then they're like scared because they think that I'm a man. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'm on your team.
By 2013,
Australian passports to have third gender options. X category aims to counter discrimination against intersex people, while transgender people can pick male or female. Oh my God. Just because there are no third gender doesn't mean you are being discriminated against. It just means you're living in reality.
Australia was allowing people to put X as a gender marker on their passports. This was adopted by other places around the world. News outlets like The Guardian and NPR started running pieces about non-binary identities, confusingly using they to refer to these people. By 2014,
You can't say theirs. You can't. Because that is telling somebody that that is their... Hi, Nakota. Nice to see you. Yes, you can be an Apache attack helicopter. Like,
confusingly using they to refer
theirs. You cannot say this theirs as a pronoun. You can't, because that refers to another person's thing. Like, this remote is theirs. Now people are being grammatically stupid.
to these people. By 2014, Laverne Cox appeared on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "The Transgender Tipping Point." Just a year later, we had Jazz Jennings on everyone's screen, the young boy who is marked as transgender and going through a...
This kid's parent fails as a parent. Just fails as a parent. Look, to anyone watching this video in the future, because I will be posting this on YouTube, every kid, well, almost every kid, goes through a phase in their, young life where they might say, I want to dress up as a girl and I want to play with Barbies or dolls or whatever that the shit is, which, is fine. Let them do that. Eventually, 99 times out of 10, they will grow out of it because it is known as a phase. They'll eventually go back to wanting, if it's a boy, they'll eventually go back to wanting to play with boy stuff. And if it's a girl, they'll more likely eventually go back to wanting to play with girl stuff. It's just how it is. Now, if as a parent you see your child doing this and then you go, balls to the wall all in, and then start going on like hormone blockers and, all this sort of transgender medical stuff, and then bring them in for surgeries or whatever, automatically should have CPS called on your ass and have your child taken away from you because you have failed as a fucking parent. You want to know what's something funny? I got a teacher that used inclusive language. I wanted to burn that person on the stick because I don't understand shit. That's funny. Burn them on the stake. Oh, that's pretty good. I like that, Nakota.
Very, very public transition. Celebrities like Miley Cyrus were coming out as genderqueer, and at this time too, misgendering someone online, calling a trans-identified male he, which you still really can't do here on YouTube, triggered intense viral outrage, doxing, social ostracism, and even job loss. Social media platforms were banning people left, right, and center, and honestly, they still kind of are.
Can you explain why misgendering is an act of violence?
A Christian...
Oh my God. Anybody who says that misgendering is an act of violence obviously does not know the definition of the word violence. Violence includes anything that is physical. Verbal, mental, emotional cannot be violence because none of it is actually physical. Violence only refers to something that happens to you physically. There's no such thing as verbal violence because violence cannot be verbal, cannot be mental, cannot be emotional. It is physical. Go back to fucking school, people. Or read a dictionary, for God's sakes.
Teacher who was banned from teaching for misgendering a pupil has lost his high court battle.
He got the axe for failing to use a transgender student's preferred pronouns.
The social enforcement was fierce, and the legal enforcement wasn't too far behind. As we saw, that not too long after all of this, UK police were showing up at people's houses to arrest them for misgendering people online. By 2016, Canada's Bill C-16 blew up in a major...
I'm not too sure about bullying because I went through bullying and that wasn't very fun. I guess it depends, but yeah. I just think a lot of people need to come off their fucking high horse and come out of their, fantasy world and come back into reality, as much as reality isn't very nice. And the truth isn't very nice, but people need to face it.
Away. The legislation was designed to amend the Canadian Human Rights Act to include gender identity or expression, but all it did was upset people about its propensity for compelled pronoun use. And it gave us Jordan Peterson, who at the time was a professor at the University of Toronto, and who refused patently to use pronouns like "zir" and "they" for mentally unwell people.
Like lobsters.
In the same year, the U.S.
White House sends schools guidance on transgender access to bathrooms. Oh, this one's a touchy subject. Go to the bathroom that you are biologically, born as. Because I can guarantee you if a transgender woman that looks a lot like a man goes into the bathroom along with somebody's daughter, that's not going to turn out well. It is not going to turn out well one bit. Because fathers can be very fucking protective of their daughters.
Department of Education issued a directive to public schools that forced them to let trans-identified students use the bathroom and locker room that matched their gender identity. If the schools refused, they risked federal funding cuts. Around the same time, the New York...
You can be fined for not calling people Z or here. If that's the pronoun they demand that you can demand all you want. You are not going to force me to call you something if I don't want to call you that. Now, if you respectfully ask me to call you that, then, I just might do that. But if you're going to force me to do something, then you know what? Fuck you, I'm not going to. You cannot force people to change the way they call things or their language. You just cannot do that. People are not going to react too kindly to that. Now, for fining people for not calling something that they demand that you call them, that is just idiocy. We are getting into the point of the movie Idiocracy.
City Commission on Human Rights declared that the refusal to use a person's preferred pronouns, including zir and here, I haven't heard of here, that's a new one, could be discriminatory under city law with fines up to $250,000.
$250,000 for not calling somebody that they demand you call them. Do people realize how ludicrous, I can't say that, ludicrously stupid. There we go. How ludicrously stupid that is to fine somebody $250,000 for not calling somebody that they demand you call them. Are people that fucking unintelligently stupid? Sometimes I see this and said, if you put my little girl with a trans guy, I'm going to torch the place down. I'm going to make sure they go through so much litigation that even his grandchildren will need lawyers. Yeah, fathers can be very, very protective of their daughters, and they won't be nice about it. But $250,000, fining somebody $250,000 for not calling somebody their preferred pronoun. We are failing so hard as a society if that is where we have come. Oh my God.
For employers and landlords, just because they don't want to call you here. It's spelled H-I-R. Yeah, I know. It's very weird. Unsurprising to absolutely none of you, after this, things started to go downhill pretty quickly. While many trans activists continued to argue that they just wanted to be left alone and live their lives, the wider population was being subjected to both legal and social compliance. Because of course they were! By 2018, they were pushing to a...
This right here, this is... We're not going downhill. We're falling off a fucking cliff. This is a 90-degree cliff that has no, rock or crack or anything in it that you can catch onto to climb yourself back up. This is a smooth, shaved wall, and we're falling down that cliff. Do vulva owners like sex? Vulva owners. It is because of the transgender community that a lot of the language that revolves around women/females, they are getting rid of the word female and woman because they find that offensive. I feel like I'm becoming dumber by the second. If there's a stronger word for stupid or dumbass, I would love to use it for this. I'm going to probably butcher your name. Paradigm? Is that how it said? Paradigm? Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Nerd Empire. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but I think it's paradigm. Okay, good. I'm happy I got that right. I'm usually pretty good when it comes to first-time pronunciations, but Paradigm, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to my Nerd Empire. But it's just... I'm really worried for our future generations. All right. Back to the video. All right, everyday black... Another thing that has been fucking stupid that they got rid of, birthing people. It's fucking women. I'm just gonna, anything that replaces the word woman, I'm just gonna say woman because I find it so fucking stupid and annoying. Black women and our babies die because our doctors don't believe our pain. My children almost became a statistic. I justified about my experience at Oversight Dems. Today, hear us, believe us, because for so long, nobody has. Right. And it's a congresswoman replacing the word woman. It's you know, if she's going to keep congresswoman, but say birthing people, what kind of hypocritical shit is this?
Pregnancy, motherhood, and menstruation, arguing it excluded trans men and non-binary people. They pushed to change terms like woman to uterus owner or mother to pregnant person. Politicians started adopting this language.
The largest labor union in the country.
Politicians.
When we talk about women, we're being inclusive. It's not inclusive. Because trans women can't give birth because they don't have a uterus. When you're free, I joined yours. Oh, thank you. Yeah, just message me anytime on Discord. You can't say birthing people. You can only say women because only women are able to give birth. Because biologically, those men can't. We don't have the facilities to do so. We use gender neutral language. We use idiocracy language when talking about pregnancy because it is not just women that can get pregnant and give birth. Reproductive freedom is for everybody. Okay. Women and trans men can get pregnant and give birth because women are, women, and trans men are still biological women. So therefore, only women and trans men can get pregnant and give birth. Men and trans women cannot, because we haven't evolved that way to do so.
Started adopting this language.
The largest labor union in the country, the National Education Association, had been proposing a resolution for future contracts to replace the word mother with birthing parent.
You shifted from using the term mother to birthing people.
Health equity for black birthing people.
And birthing people.
Birthing people.
When asked, American judges couldn't and refused to define what a woman is.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Let's give a dictionary definition of the word woman. Let me bring it up. All right. An adult female human being. There you are, people. Oxford Dictionary. A female member of a workplace team. A female person associated with a particular place, activity, or occupation. There you go, people. An adult female human being. There it is. The textbook definition of woman. Shocking, I know.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
To be clear, you wrote this while you were a sitting judge, 2017? You were on the bench?
That is correct, after
Okay.
a case I had.
So, as I understand it, you don't think that there really is any clear-cut distinction between male and female as biological categories. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
That's what you wrote.
What am I even listening to? How are judges meant to interpret the law when they can't even interpret biology? This is alarming on all the alarming levels. Kind of terrifyingly, this wasn't only a political and social issue. The medical community was starting to participate. Of course, not only...
Oh, God, yeah. No, the medical... When it comes to medical problems, you have to be accurate. Biologically accurate, especially because the male and female bodies function differently. And we respond differently to medications. So if you have a problem, especially a problem that pertains to a female, you have to tell them you are biologically a female so they can properly treat you. Because if you insist on the fact that you're a male but you're biologically female, you are not going to get the proper treatment. So you have to tell them the correct information. Because if you don't, you're going to fuck up everything and you're not going to get treated correctly. And then the people are going to complain, oh, he didn't treat me correctly. Yeah. Well, you didn't give him the accurate information, you dumb bitch.
In the language changes, but the just kind of general mass delusion that was taking place. People in the scientific communities started insisting that there were more
hang
than
on, my brother's calling. Sorry about that. It was my brother.
two sexes, tying themselves in knots trying to justify this position. We ended up with terms like sex assigned at birth and the insistence even from...
Let's talk about pregnant. Yes. No, they don't exist. They're potatoes. Well, you have fun cooking your potatoes. Pregnant men don't exist because it is biologically impossible for men to get pregnant. Now, pregnant trans men do exist because they are biologically women. See, now you should say, let's talk about pregnant trans men, not pregnant men. You're going to confuse an entire generation, you dumb fucktards. And it's assigned sex at birth. You are not assigned a sex. You are born as one. Because that's how evolution works.
From some outfits that men can give birth.
Do you believe then that men can become pregnant and have abortions?
Yes. Dr. Kumar, can biological men become pregnant and give birth?
No.
So men can have pregnancies, especially trans men.
Can men get pregnant?
I'm going to use a famous TED quote. There aren't chicks with dicks, only men with tits. Those are called moobs, my good man. Moobs. Man boobs. Chicks with dicks only exist in manga, and those are called futanaris.
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Well, Mr. Secretary, materials coming from your department, you've referred to mothers as birthing persons, replacing that title with...
Are mothers not persons?
I think it would be extremely disrespectful to call mothers birthing people because they have gone through 9 months of pregnancy. And for them not to be referred to as a mother, I've told my mom that, and even she thought that was incredibly fucking stupid. My mom didn't go through 9 months of pregnancy and 18 months of child rearing to not be referred to as a mom or mother. But to be referred to as a birthing person, even I as a man and as a son to said mother find that offensive. because my mom has gone through a lot, and for her not to be referred to as a mother is incredibly disrespectful.
Mothers are persons, but it seems to be more inclusive, like you're trying to include another gender in that.
I'm all about inclusion, Congresswoman.
My name is Danny. I'm a non-binary birther. For those of you who don't know, I gave birth to my child 20 months ago at home. It was beautiful. It was a spiritual experience. Congratulations. Thank you. I did it as a non-binary person, not as a woman, just to be very clear.
Some medical professionals.
You did it as a biological woman. Socially, you did it as a trans man, or as non-binary, whatever you called yourself. Biologically a woman, you did it as. Socially, as a non-binary.
Have insisted and continue to insist that there is no difference between trans-identified males and a female when it comes to female sports, that men should be allowed to compete against women, giving us the likes of Leah Thomas and other athletes who have stolen opportunities and wins from female competitors.
In June, a complaint was filed by the families of 3 girls who say allowing transgender athletes to compete in sports as the gender they identify with unfairly discriminates against their daughters.
But I also don't need anybody's permission to be myself and to do the sport that I love.
You don't need anybody's permission to be who you want to be yourself. You do, however, should get people's permission to do the sport you want to do as a trans person. Because to compete against biological women as a trans man or as a trans woman is incredibly unfair and disrespectful towards the biological women. Because as a biological man, you have every advantage against them.
So, like, this idea that, like...
Voice is higher because I sped up clips. To be clear, this person was born male and competes in female competitions. This person is not biologically female.
Oh, you're not a biological woman. Well, I am a woman. That's a fact. I am female. So all my identity records, my racing license, my medical records all say...
You can change all your medical records, your license, whatever else you want. You can change it all to say female. You cannot, however, biologically change yourself to female. We currently, in this day and age, do not have the scientific technology to biologically transition people to the opposite gender. We just don't. We don't have the ability to do that yet. In the future, we might, but for now, we don't. We can only physically do it. We cannot biologically do it. So you are biologically a male, but in every other way other than biology, you are female. You still have every biological advantage over women. Whether you want to hear that or not, it is the truth.
Female, right? And I'm pretty sure I'm made of biological stuff. So I'm a biological female as well.
I can't
No, you're not. No, you are not.
say what I want to say here. I will get banned from YouTube. I was actually quite happy earlier.
I hate the fact that people can't speak their mind on YouTube because they find it so they're afraid of offending people. People need to get offended. They do. They need to hear the truth. They need to hear things how they are. I will speak my fucking mind. If they don't like it, then they can, you know what, fuck off. If you don't like what I have to say, don't listen to me. But I will speak my mind, I will speak the truth, and I will speak how things logically are in reality. And people need to fucking hear that.
When I read this article saying that the asteroid that's set to hit our planet in a couple years will probably not hit it anymore. And then I watched this clip, and now I yearn for the meteor. By this time, TikTok...
This guy needs to incredibly fuck off. He's creepy, and he tries. I don't know why he does. He tries to get kids to talk to him. He needs to fuck off of the social space. He does. He needs to fuck off.
was in full swing, and you all know how much I love TikTok.
This guy's
And
just
it became
annoying.
a breeding ground for mental illness and all of this gender insanity. Young people were ideologically captured, and all of this started showing up much, much more in schools and in universities.
This dad fails as a parent. I will say it over and over again. You fail as a parent as soon as you keep this shit around your kids and you enable it. You fucking fail. You have lost the right to be a parent.
And in the medical field, where kids were insisting that they were something other than their sex. To answer this growing demand, gender clinics started popping up all over the place. Doctors made lighthearted TikToks talking about performing double mastectomies on healthy young people.
Gender clinics across the country.
It should be illegal for any medical facility to perform any sort of trans operation on kids. Anyone under 18, it should be incredibly illegal. In any hospital, any medical facility that lets it happen should instantly be in a shit ton of fucking trouble. Anybody that disagrees with it, that says it should be all right for it to happen to kids, you fail. As a human being, you fail.
Have seen a huge rise in child referrals.
Our journey with a transgender child.
You know, we've seen staggering growth in gender medical treatment for children.
My name is Ella, and I'm 7 years old, and I'm transgender.
The UK's Tavistock Institute was prescribing puberty blockers to people as young as 10, insisting children must be gender affirmed early on, lest they go and, do horrible things to themselves. The insanity was absolutely everywhere, coming at us from all sides. And rather than seeing this, rather than identifying the growing backlash and anger and frustration coming from the wider population and trying to be understanding, the trans activist gender movement people instead decided to double down. Wow, that's so crazy. I can't believe they did that. That's just totally unexpected from them. Threats from trans-identified males towards women they label as hateful became commonplace.
Trans woman 44 who threatened to kill, blind, and break the back of women's rights campaigners Kelly J. Keene and Helen Joyce is given suspended jail sentence after court hears it happened during a mental health struggle. I don't know really what I can say anymore. I don't know what I can say anymore. We are kowtowing to these mentally ill minority people because we're so afraid of offending them. We are failing as a society. We really are.
Images of women being hanged with captions like "dead TERFs" or "kill a TERF" have...
Hang on, what does that say? Hang on a second. A follow-up to the dead rat that was nailed to our door recently. Jesus Christ. This morning we found this writing scrawled across the window of our storefront space that we use for support and training groups. What happened to having healthy debates, healthy arguments, conversations? What happened to that stuff? Now, as soon as somebody hears something they don't like, or somebody's opinion that they don't like, they inevitably turn to harassment and violence. Why? What does that solve? What does that do other than make you look like a complete retarded idiot that has zero intelligence? And I don't understand. What?
Have circulated across the internet,
Decapitate TERFs.
cheered on by so many. While they scream about just wanting acceptance, they fail to rein in the worst actors among them, including those.
It is because of these kind of people that these people are the reason why everybody is hating the transgender movement. These type of people are dragging the movement through the fucking mud and bed and just stabbing it over and over with a knife. These type of people are the reason why so many movements are hated and nobody wants anything to do with them. If these type of people didn't exist within these type of movements, the movements would be, fine. People would be fine with them. But it's because of people like this that turn up in these movements that take them to such a personal degree that everybody just finds them annoying and hates them.
Perpetuating legitimately violent rhetoric.
I was going to come here and be really fluffy and be really nice and say, yeah, be really lovely and queer and gay. No, if you see a TERF, punch him in the fucking face.
T-shirts.
Yeah, because violence solves everything.
With messages like trans rights or else and
it almost turns into a terrorist organization at this point. That's basically what this is showing.
Protect trans kids with images of knives or guns have been seen at trans protests across the country. Countless stories about males exposing themselves to women and young girls in locker rooms and bathrooms have made headlines, met with silence from trans activists, of course. Incidences of women being SA'd by trans-identified males in prison.
Yeah, they don't say anything because it goes against with what they want, what they believe. As soon as the bad parts of it start to show up, they try and bury it and only, show the good things. They cherry pick the shit.
Have gone ignored by the community that fights for their inclusion at the cost of harming women. Even the most hailed trans activists have behaved wildly inappropriately, with one incident making national headlines when Rose Montoya was seen partially naked on the White House lawn in 2023. The message that everyone who disagrees with you must be a Nazi has eroded any attempts to reach common ground. But worse than that, it has emboldened.
Oh yeah, this is the person that says, try and stop me from going into the woman's bathroom. This person's going to get his teeth kicked down his throat. I can guarantee you that.
Emboldened people to continue making violent threats in the name of protecting themselves. Like this video, for example, that circulated in 2023, where a trans-identified individual made several alarming remarks.
I dare you to try and stop me from going into a women's bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. I dare you to...
I guarantee you that if he goes into a women's bathroom behind someone else's daughter, that father is not going to respond very kindly. He's going to warn him to stop and do not go in there. And if he continues to proceed to go in there and act all high and mighty and like a dick, he's going to get his ass beat. Because like I said, fathers can be very protective of their daughters. I don't advocate for violence because I don't think violence really solves anything. The only way you should use violence is if you're protecting somebody else, like, somebody you care for and love, or if you're protecting yourself. But it's these type of people that the only way they will understand is if they get their ass beat.
Try and stop a transgender woman in my presence from using the bathroom. it will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call to action. You need to arm up. Plain and simple. Go out, buy a gun. You need to protect yourself, and you need to protect your fellow transgender brothers and sisters and theys and thems. You need to protect the rest of us in the LGBT community, as I'm going to do myself.
I will protect those that I deem worthy of my protection. How about that?
Because there are lots of people like me who are not afraid to die.
I always find these type of videos really interesting because they're usually being made for people who can't even run up a hill. The people that you're instructing to get firearms probably think they're too heavy. It actually just makes me think of an army of David Huggs, and I don't find that particularly intimidating. The notion that someone stopping you from using a bathroom is worthy of physical violence is a direct result of the ideas that trans activists have been spreading for over a decade. That anyone who doesn't abide by the growing insanity of the gender ideology and trans movements is a direct threat. The many viral "it's ma'am" moments certainly haven't helped bring the public around to accepting these types of ideas and behaviors in civil society. Once again, putting it mildly. Say what you want to about the "it's ma'am" crowd, but they have given us a lot of very fun videos to laugh at over the years. I'm just trying to give you guys some silver linings here. The irony for me, and I'm not quite sure how to articulate this, but I'm gonna do my best, is that many trans activists and allies from the trans and gender-based communities, these movements, paint themselves typically as the victim in all of this, despite the fact that they are, in fact, the most aggressive perpetrators online a lot of the time, and typically are the ones making these situations even worse. I just really struggled to see how the most aggressive voices in a community and across an issue who are contributing to people getting doxxed and fired and harassed and whatnot are the victims and all of that. I feel like I am missing something. The dots are not all connecting. Anyway, all of this said, you might be asking, Sydney, what's the net effect of all of these things? Well, I will tell you. People are tired. They are tired of walking on eggshells, and they are fed up with being accused of bigotry or transphobia, lest they use the wrong pronoun with a stranger that they meet in the store. Many people, me included, are tired of watching language be altered and erased to accommodate a fraction of the population, erasing age-old truths that we have known and understood since the beginning of recorded history. So yeah, it's not really a mystery why the pendulum is doing a backswing right now. Depending on your perspective, the funny or sad part here in all of this is how many people actually just used to wholesale support and or accept the trans movement and its objectives and many of its people. But as time has worn on, those same people have become infinitely less accepting because of the tactics used by the trans community in forcing their acceptance. Are we seeing a trend here? In their attempts to basically shame and attack people into compliance, they have instead caused a ton of the broader community to jump ship. People don't take too kindly to children being exposed to things like drag shows,
Oh God, drag. That's another thing. Drag should not be allowed anywhere near children because people don't seem to realize how entirely hyper sexualized drag is. Drag is so hyper sexual that there are even drag show children. As disgusting as that is, there was a kid, I can't remember what his name was, but he did drag, and he did a drag show in front of adults, and these adults were throwing money at this kid. If that doesn't scream pedo, I don't know what does. But that was just one of the most horrifying things I've seen when it came to this fucking community. Drag should be illegal to have around kids. And if anybody disagrees with that, you need to get a fucking reality check.
sexualized pride events. They don't like seeing drag performances at school assemblies and class education that is graphic and misleading, telling little children that gender is a spectrum and sex is not, in fact, immutable.
This is one of the reasons why if I have kids, I would want to homeschool them, because I don't want my kids to get brainwashed into thinking that there are 50,000 genders and all this sort of shit is okay. I want to raise my kid with some actual morals, with a conscience, some fucking modesty and decorum.
The hostility with which trans activists and allies approach arguments, the refusal to acknowledge the realities of our biological nature, and the constant attempts to change language to accommodate people's precious feelings has accelerated the disdain and anger in the broader community. And I can assure you this pendulum swing is about to get much worse. Or better, depending on which side of the aisle you're on and how you feel about all of this. By refusing to put meaningful, logical limits on self-identification, by blurring the lines between science and ideology and forcing their ideas onto the wider population, trans activists and their allies have ensured that all of the ground that they have achieved in recent years is going to be reversed. So the bottom line is that whether or not people agree or disagree with what's currently happening, the backslide of support that we're currently seeing and the reversal of policies that we're currently seeing is entirely self-inflicted. I am personally of the opinion that most people probably would have been fine continuing this live and let live philosophy had the trans movement and its activists not gone completely off the bloody rails. At one point, there probably actually was a middle ground that could have been achieved here, but again, these people made damn sure that that was never going to be the case, and now we have very much bypassed that stage. And just to be clear, I'm not saying any of this with a degree of glee or whatever. I honestly would prefer just to be left alone, but apparently that's just too much to ask. In the end, my prediction here is that this entire movement is going to unravel. And honestly, although I'm not super sure what that looks like at its nth degree, I am very pleased that finally some sanity is making headway. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder, check out Vtuber using the link in the description. As I have said previously, I unironically love this service, and if you are somebody who is concerned about your information being out there on the internet, definitely check it out. It might be for you. Now I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you on my side of this issue, where you also started off very indifferent and have ended up quite frustrated by all of this? Are you on the other side of the aisle, where you think that it's very necessary to pursue trans rights and gender-based things? Are you somebody who thinks that we are taking things now too far and that rolling back many of these policies is actually a bad thing? Do you think that it's a good thing? Do you think that it protects women and girls and ultimately is bringing society back to some sort of sanity-based equilibrium? Do you think that this is going to unravel ultimately, that this movement is going to kind of die a slow and painful death? Or do you think that maybe we can actually find a middle ground? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you are not subscribed already and you would like to see more of me and more of this kind of content, feel free to hit that subscribe button, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment, because I do read the majority of them and I really like hearing your feedback. Of course, in the interim, my dear potato children, I hope you all stay safe and well, and I will see your very pretty faces in the next video.
God. I hope that at some point society will reset itself and things will just, become better. But sadly, I don't really see that happening, but you never know. We'll see.